Hey, I'm Dan Thomas, and welcome to the Newbie Woodworker. I put out a video about this chisel plane a while ago, and you guys seemed to really like it. But some people were worried about having a sharp blade lying around, and considering how clumsy I am, I figured they were right, so I made this sheath. Stick around and I'll show you all about it. After I published the chisel plane video, I learned an important safety tip. When you're using it, keep your hands and other body parts behind the blade, and you're less likely to shed blood. Yeah, I know, Captain Obvious, right? Except, obviously, it wasn't obvious to me. I was more like Captain Oblivious. One other thing, I don't know much about sharpening chisel blades, so search YouTube if you want to know how to do it properly. But I can tell you one thing, only sharpen the slanted side. You want the bottom to be flat right up to the edge, so don't sharpen this side. If you do sharpen the blade, just be aware it might leave a burr along the bottom. So however you remove the burr, make sure the bottom stays flat, or it won't work nearly as well. After I made it, I kept coming up with other ideas that might be better. But since this works, it's good enough for me. Feel free to design your own version. The bottom is 1/2-inch plywood, and the rest is 1/4-inch plywood. But really, you could make it out of just about anything. Underneath the top here, I've got 2 neodymium magnets to hold the chisel in place. They're the smaller ones. I think they're 0.3 inches or something like that. I was thinking I needed this back piece to help keep the chisel from sliding out, but the magnets work pretty well, so I don't think you need it. Listen, I know some of you are kind of reluctant to try creating your own projects, so I thought I'd try to show you my thought process while I built this. And this is your first chance to see my new table saw in operation. If you don't care, feel free to stop now, but if you want to help my channel, watch to the end. Or just leave it playing and go do something else. YouTube is more likely to recommend a video if people tend to watch the whole thing. Thanks. The first thing I do when creating new projects is to think about it for a while and come up with some ideas. I might take days just ruminating. I love that word, ruminating. I remembered I have this Stanley drywall knife, and it came with a sheath. For me, if I can find a name for what I want to build, that's half the battle. So when I thought of a sheath, it was pretty easy to come up with a plan. I'd need to start with a base, like the back of this sheath, and a pocket for the blade. And instead of a strap, I figured magnets would be perfect for holding the blade in the sheath. To me, this seemed easy enough to create on the fly, so I didn't bother drawing up any plans. The first real decision was what kind of wood to use. How strong does it need to be? How nice does it have to look? Well, it doesn't need to be very strong, and who cares what it looks like? I suppose you could make it out of some nice mahogany or something like that, but to me, I just wanted it functional. I have a bunch of scrap pieces of plywood lying around, so I grabbed a piece of 1/2-inch plywood for the base. Obviously, I'd need sides to hold up the pocket, so I set the chisel plane down where it looked about right, and I traced the blade and handle. When I measured it, the sides came out to about 3/8 of an inch, and although that's kind of arbitrary, it seemed about right. I figured out the rest of the dimensions from that. I used 1/4-inch plywood and cut a couple of strips for the sides. I also cut strips for the top and bottom, but I didn't cut them to length yet. I laid out the sides with the chisel plane, then I measured the gap so I knew how long to cut the front. I was originally thinking I'd extend the sides along the rest of the blade, but I finally decided that wasn't necessary. Then I cut the top for the pocket and cut the base to length. Before gluing, I set up everything and clamped it all, so I knew exactly how I was going to clamp it. A while ago, I bought this set of 22 clamps for less than $9 from Home Depot. They actually work pretty well, and this was the first time I'd used the smallest ones. They were perfect for the job. I kept using the chisel plane to make sure the spacing was correct, and it also helped to get things aligned correctly. I let the glue set for about 20 minutes, then I cleaned the squeeze out from the blade. After that, I cleaned up the rest of the squeeze out. It's easier to do this when the glue's had a little time to glob together, but not so long that it's dry. Then I added the clamps again and let it dry for another hour and a half, which is probably overkill, but whatever. After removing the clamps, I did a final cleanup. Then I measured for the pocket top and the back and cut them to size. I'm drilling the holes for the magnets here. I wanted them deep enough so the top of the magnets were flush with the top of the base. There's a little trial and error involved here. As I got ready to glue the magnets in using epoxy just like last time, One of the magnets fit so well in the hole I couldn't get it out, so I figured that was good enough and only glued the other one. I used some painter's tape and a block of wood to help clamp it and let it sit for 20 minutes or so. After cleaning it up, I added glue for the top. I was careful not to get squeeze out inside because there's no easy way to clean it up. And finally, I cleaned up the pencil lines and glued on the back. And there you go, a sheath for the chisel plane. You could attach it to a wall or just put it on a shelf. I hope this video helped. If it did, please give it a thumbs up and consider leaving a comment. Check out the description for links to products seen in this video. Just scroll down, click Show More, and scroll down until you see the links. And if you like what I do here, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to ring that bell to get notified about new videos. Thanks!